Connect and stay ahead with Salam Media. This is Salam Media coming to you live from South Africa.
Welcome back to the Nafisa Dango Show. That was definitely a very inspirational chat with a gentleman from the Netherlands, definitely making a difference. It's something I think that we always tend to overlook as human beings. And I think it's so imperative to get in touch with recycling and what sort of impacts it has on our environment. But talking about impacts, we know COVID-19 has had major impacts on our lives. And it's affected, I think, every single family. There isn't one person or particular individuals who have not faced one challenge or the other. And today, this is what I'm saying, is it's so important to be able to reach out to people and give them that hope and that direction. And this has been done through a book. And I think it's so important to actually go and pick up a book. A lot of the times we get so busy in our schedules, we don't realize the importance of picking up that book and riding that journey and learning the message and the impact the author would like to create as far as a particular issue is concerned. And this is where Lockdown Behind the Mask came in, incepted in such a way to be able to create these fiction stories as well as to non-fiction to make us understand that every single person's challenge during this period of time was different, but it had such a relative and important message behind it. And today we're going to be speaking to one of the authors. She's also very instrumental in having to put this book together. And let me tell you a little bit about her. Her name is Raashida Khan. She's a South African, a caring, compassionate, and empathetic person who loves observing people and life. She's a storyteller of note. She would like to be remembered as being never boring, a content creator, copywriter, editor, and proofreader by day. She's as passionate about being an author, a poet, a wife, a mother, and a friend, a unicorn that does exist. Raashida facilitates workshops on writing prose and poetry and discussions around her passion projects. But today she's going to be speaking to me about her piece that she wrote in the anthology Lockdown Behind the Mask. And it's called His Pleasure, Her Pain, My Patience. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Lovely to chat to you today, Nafisa. And jazakallah for that warm introduction.
Thank you so much for joining us on the show this afternoon. It's always nice to get enticed into a better space, and no better way than speaking to an author. I think a lot of the times, authors are not taken that seriously. And when I picked up this book and I read a few pieces here and there during the spare time that I had, I realized the impactfulness of this book and what it really meant for people. So thank you so much for joining me on the show. I'm really honored to speak to you because I know you were very instrumental in putting this together. So let's talk just a few minutes quickly about, the concept of having to put the book together, Lockdown Behind the Mask, and what it meant for you.
So, this was actually the brainchild of co-editor Jan Biratunga. She had this idea of wanting to write a lockdown story, one of her personal stories based on the Muslim women. And then she thought, why not ask for submissions from Muslim women on their experience of lockdown? And at the very outset, this was just an idea. It was just a germ of an idea in her head. And she approached me and I said, no, I'd love to be part of this. Count me in, and I was on board, and we've been together with the process of, getting the call for submission out, then receiving all of the stories from the ladies, and some of them are essays, personal analysis and essays, and some of them are fictional stories, and people were submitting. Interestingly enough, we didn't ask only. I misrepresented. We didn't ask for the submission from Muslim women. We asked for any all women, but based on with the stories should have an Islamic signature or an Islamic tilt to the story. So that's what and interestingly enough, we don't only have Muslim women writing. We had a few non-Muslim women submitting stories as well.
The idea I loved about the book, it actually gave upcoming authors a platform to be able to showcase their potential and what they can do.
That's very true. And in fact, 12 of these women have never been published in any anthology or of their own accord. Now, 12 of them. So for these 12 women, a lot of them had been thinking about writing. A lot of them had written, but had never submitted or gotten published. And it gave an opportunity, because it was almost targeted towards women, because it was targeted only towards women and asking for stories with an Islamic signature, an Islamic background or understanding. It allowed a lot more women to come to the fore who were probably thinking about writing and never got around to it. And of course, it was during the period of lockdown, and it was, the stories were asked to be about lockdown and people's experiences around lockdown. Maybe some women had time, but a lot of people were also internally reflecting. We were at the beginning of lockdown, we were all, life came to a complete, almost 180-degree turn, and everything that needed to be normal was turned upside down, and we had to deal with that. And a lot of people were dealing with this kind of internal question as to why this happened, why now, what have we contributed to the way this thing has happened. So there was a lot of that, and there's a lot to be said about dealing with things through writing about it, through journaling about it. So it was an ideal opportunity for many women to reach into some of them were untapped, previously unused talents, because I believe everybody can write. If you put your mind to it and this is what you really want to do, if there's a passion, everybody can write. So this gave that opportunity to the women, and we felt very proud about that, because it really empowered a lot of the women, and it really gave them an opportunity to voice themselves, for other people to hear their voice.
Yes, I agree with you. Let's talk about your piece that you've contributed to this anthology. It says, his pleasure, her pain, my patience. Let's talk a little bit about the story.
Okay, so this story came to me for various reasons, but what I did want to address is, a common thing that's amongst our society, that of second wives. Well, it's not common. I wouldn't want to say common, but it's not totally unheard of. So it often does occur, the situation of the second wife, or for whatever reason. And then I did a little bit of reading and research on it, and I came across a practice which is often frowned upon. It is mostly frowned upon in most of the Islamic world, but some ulama, for their own reasons, use something called passion marriage. It's not something that is actually supposed to be allowed, in Islam, but some people, they will interpret the text to their advantage or to their benefit or whatever they want it to be for them. And so this is just, one of the themes in the book. But the title itself already reflects what is another thing that I really want you to touch on in the story: his pleasure, her pain, my patience, about how every one of us sees things differently. Every one of us has our own perspective on things, and I thought that was something that I wanted to talk about, and how we each relate to something, and how we can be experiencing the same thing, but as two different people have a completely different experience of it, have a completely different feeling towards it, and it's all very, very internal in the sense of how we process it. So yes, that was another theme that ran through it. And it's a story also of about compassion and acceptance and forgiveness. And if anybody knows my other writing, because as you know, Nafisa, I've got 3 novels out, as well as a poetry anthology and a short story collection. Those are themes that often run through strongly in my writing. I like to talk about acceptance and forgiveness. In fact, I run a workshop on forgiveness, which, really, when the participants are at, they really are able to express themselves, voice themselves, reach into themselves. And that is what it's all about. That is what ultimately forgiveness is all about. It's about also learning to let go and accepting and moving on, and learning to forgive ourselves, very important.
Would you say that was the strongest message in your piece that you wrote in this anthology?
I think so. Yes. There are basically three protagonists in the story, and the main protagonist, I would imagine, is the wife, the first wife. Her name is Raashida, and it's her. The whole story takes place just over one night. So you can hear me. I seem to be getting some feedback on the chorus. Hear me okay, Nafisa?
Yes, it's breaking up a little bit.
Okay. So as I'm saying, the story takes place on one night, and at the beginning, there's a lock. The doorbell rings, and somebody is visiting, and it's like quite bizarre because it's late at night. It's 9 o'clock in the evening, and it's locked down and it's curfew. And so Farida is very concerned because initially she doesn't even recognize the bell. It's such a strange sound. She's hardly had anybody come through at night, especially to the house, because nobody's been going anywhere. It was right at the initial stages of lockdown. And she lets somebody in who she does recognize and eventually realizes who she is, because initially when she sees her through the security camera, she's wearing a mask and she doesn't recognize the name initially. And then she gets the shock of her life when the woman comes in and her story is revealed. She gets the shock of her life, and she has to now process this, accept it, deal with it, understand it, and decide how she's going to move forward. And there's a part when, after all of the initial drama of the revelation settles down, she moves away, she excuses herself, and she goes to read her salah. And because it's Ramadan, it's a long salah, and she takes her time to read, and she actually in that time connects with her Allah in such a way that when she emerges, it's almost as if she is able to forgive everybody that would have up until a while ago, she didn't even know, but up until a while ago, she was completely betrayed by them, and she just learned this. So it's quite, it is quite a story about that woman and her process of learning to let go and go through with it. And and because of the short story and because of the way the tension was built up, it seems like it happened quickly in one night. But I'm hoping that readers will connect with and understand that anybody can go through any kind of challenge in their life at any point. Things will present themselves and you have to react and respond.
Right.
But we can always find it within ourselves to learn to live and accept these things and move on. It's really a story about courage also and strength and believing in your strength.
Yes, and I was just going to say that it's about making yourself understand that irrespective of the challenge that you're facing and the situation you're in, you can actually change that for the better for yourself. I think a lot of people in times like this don't even know where to start. And I think what happens is inevitably they just kind of give up. But it's people like yourself that write pieces like this to make people understand that you're not alone, firstly. There's a lot of people going through similar experiences, but having to deal with it in such a way that you can move yourself into a better space from where you've been before.
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. And I often say, if this continued behavior of not being able to let something go, if that doesn't serve you, and really speaking, it doesn't, that doesn't serve us. Hanging on to things that have passed, all it does is it continues to hurt us. Because the first time that something happened or somebody did something or you experienced something negative, maybe you can justify and say that was an external thing. But every time after that you think about it or you relive it and you put yourself through that, you're actually hurting yourself, So if it doesn't serve you, and I know it's easy to say because we all struggle with this. We all struggle with being able to let go and move on. But if we understand that it's not serving us, why should we hang on to this? and as good enough a reason as any to try and let things go, because we need to ultimately be looking after ourselves first and foremost. I mean, it's all about self-care and self-love. And it's only when we are really taking care of ourselves and loving ourselves are we able to then, give that out.
I think a lot of the times people actually lose that plot. You want to, of course, be selfless and want to give back to others. But I think in that space, there are times where we tend to lose ourselves and not realize that we need to also, take 2 steps back and look at ourselves and say, where am I right now? And how am I going to change what is happening to me in my life, not just somebody else's?
That's absolutely correct as well, Nafisa. It's amazing how you're summarizing this also nicely. Yes, exactly. You need to look after yourself, and you need to be very, very aware of how the way you look at you, or the way you treat yourself, and the way you care and love about yourself and acknowledge yourself is how other people will do it to you, So it's a reflection. Everything that we do and we say is a reflection of how other people see us and how they believe us to be, and that's how then they treat us, And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing or a good thing. I'm just saying that that's how it is. So yes, and it's not something that I feel should be a conscious decision or anything like that. I'm not saying go and start thinking about how you look at yourself and all of that. It doesn't have to be complicated. It can be about small little things, small little things along the way, which can add and build up to you finally being able to to just let things flow. It's very, very important to live in the moment as well. Life is so short, and it's so important to live in the moment, and we understand that we can't live in the past. The past is over, we can't change it. The future is there.
Yeah, I like what you say, Raashida, about living in the moment, because at this point in time, with COVID-19, it's been so difficult for people. So the other day, one of my guests said something to me, and I think it stuck with me. She said, I asked her, how does she get through her challenge of having this disease at such a young age? And she said to me, I look at the little things in life that bring me joy.
Really, that is. That's such a lesson in that. There's so much we can learn from that.
I thought that was so deep. It was just so deep.
Very deep. And you know what that also reminds us to do is to be grateful, because there are so many things that that we can be joyous about and we can take pleasure in. We are so blessed, and we need to acknowledge and give gratitude for our blessings along the way. And I think that is another thing, to constantly come back to the moment, to constantly be aware and to live in the moment, and just be aware of who you are, where you are at that time, and appreciate that and acknowledge that.
That's so true. What message would you like to leave our viewers with this afternoon?
Well, of course, I have to have a few minutes to punt the book, please, or a few seconds to punt the book. This book is available online on Amazon. It's also available for delivery in South Africa from hikma.co.za. There are links there to purchase the book. Like I said, it's 18 authors, 12 of whom have never been published before. So you're really, empowering them by purchasing this book. All proceeds, none of the authors receive any of the proceeds. They're going to a good cause, to the Valley Trust in KZN, in the Valley of the 1,000 Hills. They run a feeding scheme and nutrition program and education programs with a lot of the gogos in that community that look after, the children, because the parents are away working. So, it's all going towards a good cause. So please do consider purchasing a book. Also a general message that I'd like to say, please keep reading. Now's an opportunity for us to read. Unfortunately, the statistics in South Africa are really horrendous in terms of us not being a reading nation. And really, it's so important, we can go through all of the sayings, which are so true, that readers are leaders, and how we know about people who are successful, who read, 30 books a year, 50 books a year. It's so important for us, especially in terms of, our understanding of life, our understanding of cultures. It's another way of us to be able to break down barriers and to forge, amongst ourselves unity, which which is also
Oh, most definitely. I agree with you.
it's quite a heavy message, but I'd love people to consider that, to encourage reading with their children, to do what they can in schools, to go out there, give their time, read with the children. It is really so important.
And no better time than now with COVID. People seem to have a little bit more time on their hands. Reading a book with their kids gives them that quality time, but at the same time, you're taking something back with you after you've read the book.
Yes, for sure.
Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We really had a really enlightening talk, and I think the stories that come out of this particular anthology is so deep, and I think it gives us really good food for thought from the spaces that we're in and where we can move ourselves to, irrespective of such a huge challenge that every single one of us is facing. So Jazakallah so much for your time. We really do appreciate it.
Jazakallah khair. I really appreciate the time and I really enjoyed our conversation, Nafisa. Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Likewise. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. That was sister, my favorite one, Raashida Khan, talking to us about lockdown behind the book. And why I'm saying that is this particular book is my favorite in the sense that it has got me thinking in many directions of one particular pandemic and the different types of challenges each one had faced through these fictional stories and the two non-fictional, as I said. But it's made you reflect, reconnect, and retrospect. And that's my three favorite words during this period. So definitely go and get your hands on that book. It can give you a lot of food for thought and entice you into a better space to make you understand that you're not alone going through this. But I want to, of course, before we end, leave you with something, and it's called Life Lessons from 2020. It says, gratitude is the best attitude. Everything can change in an instant. Connection matters. Reach out. Heroes exist. And I'd like to call those heroes our frontline workers. Pay it forward whenever you can. Your best is good enough. Support friends and family. Alone and lonely are different. Optimism and kindness are key. The small things in life are beautiful. Never stop trying. Moments are everything. Empathy is an art. Health is priceless. And I think the last one stood out for me the most. Before I leave, I'd like to pray to the Almighty that He keeps all our viewers' health going, especially through this difficult period. I think the most valuable and most treasurable thing that we can have right now and be absolutely grateful for is our health. So I think that's the first thing we need to do when we wake up in the morning is pray that the Almighty gives us our health and keeps us healthy and keeps us safe and protected from this pandemic. I really want to thank you for joining me this afternoon. It's definitely been a really educational one, bringing to light very different spheres of situations and how we can better our lives through speaking to all these role models. So Jazakallah for joining me. I definitely do look forward to joining you next week, Wednesday and Thursday afternoon, to, of course, entice you into a better space. From myself and the Salam Media team, have a really lovely weekend. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
See, we work so hard sometimes.